introduction first, like a practice.
Practice? Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Carolina Teague, and this is...
No.
Hey guys, I'm Carolina. Like that?
Carolina. Oh yeah, I have an idea. How about you say, hey guys, I'm Carolina. Today I'll tell you how to be
A sports journalist.
Yes.
Great. That's a great idea. So like brand myself. Hey guys, thanks for coming back to my channel. Today I'm doing a new video. It's called How to Be a Sports Journalist. I'm Carolina Teague. I've been in sports media for over 7 years, and I've done everything: radio, television, social media content, interviewing, hosting, ring announcing, emceeing, and I've lately been getting a lot of questions from people, or people reaching out to me for guidance and advice, and I get a lot of common questions, so I'm just here to answer the questions today because I feel like if people come to one spot, they can get all their answers, and it kind of just also helps me remind myself why I got in sports journalism in the first place. So if you guys are interested in how to be a sports journalist, keep watching. I have a few questions that I'm gonna answer, and hopefully it helps one of you guys out there that's watching who really wants to be in this field and who really wants to just thrive in the world of sports journalism. So the first question is, what skills are the most important for a sports journalist today? So for me, the most important thing for sports journalists is consistency. I always tell people the most important thing is just constantly being consistent and putting out content or putting out work as much as you possibly can. I know it's easier said than done because when you are a really shy person or you have a lot of fears or a lot of insecurities, it's easy to just like not be consistent and give up, or start a project and not give up because you doubt yourself because things aren't happening as quickly as you want them to happen. But I think consistency is one of the most important things, because I used to reach out to my mentors for advice, and their answer was always to be consistent, and I was always a little bit like, I wish there was another answer, because some people look like they blow up overnight. Some people just, like they come from like different spaces where they're like granted like a spot, an opportunity really quickly. But I think for people like you and me who are just like normal people with no ins or no connections to the industry, I think your best bet is to just be consistent and just to trust the process. And I cover the Spurs, so like they always say, pounding the rock. I think pounding the rock is one of the most important skills. The other skill that I think is really important is to really pay attention to what the rules are in journalism. I highly recommend you guys read a book about journalism, and as far as like citing sources, reaching out to people, and just being able to execute your role really well. Do a lot of homework, do a lot of research. I think that's also really important for somebody who wants to be a sports journalist. Growing up, I was always like into research, into like investigating. I was always into that type of stuff. So naturally, when these opportunities presented itself to me, I was just naturally somebody who wanted to go research, somebody who wanted to go get it on my own. And I think the final thing is just being able to be versatile. Versatility is important. The market of sports journalism is always shifting. When I first started, television and radio were still very, very prominent, and they still are to this day. And there was these like things coming around the corner where people, like whispers amongst like the media community, that things were starting to building up steam, that podcasting and having your own voice was going to be prominent. So as the years have gone by, it does seem like podcasting is big for people who are trying to get their start in sports journalism, people who are trying to have a voice. There's a lot of streaming. Streaming is really popular right now. Social media content, short form content, being able to adapt to any of those things is also really important. So I say adaptability, always being willing to grow and willing to change, is really important for as a really important skill for sports journalism. So for me, those are the things that are the most important for sports journalism today. The second question is, how do you prepare for interviews with athletes or coaches? So it just depends. If I have a big gig coming up, like for example, Reality of Wrestling, I do commentary for Reality of Wrestling, and if there is something big coming up, I do like to go back, look at their last film, last last matchup and just kind of compare notes. I do like to do film study. I like to watch my work. It's really hard to hear your own voice back. That's something that I'm starting to get used to, but just being able to like look at your own work, it'll help prepare you for that next moment. And also, this is my planner. I have a really busy week, as you can tell, and a lot of people always ask me like how I'm able to like juggle sports journalism along with, you know, being a mom, and having a family and having a full-time job on top of sports journalism. And I think like having everything planned out, like I have my film study for UFC, I'm gonna do my film study for WWE matches, boxing the next day. Just having everything written out and lined up is gonna keep you prepared for your interviews with coaches and athletes, especially if you're covering multiple sports. You wanna be on top of things like as much as you possibly can. I know it's easier said than done because it's a lot to look up and a lot to deal with, but I feel like if you're able to like plan yourself out accordingly, that's a good way to be prepared for interviews with athletes and coaches, and just doing as much research as you can. Just going back to what I said earlier, just researching and just being confident in what you're doing. Another thing is sometimes you don't have that much time to prepare for an interview. So there's been times where I just met somebody and I have to get a question out there as soon as I can. So just being prepared for what that sport is, what that event is, have some questions already prepared that are kind of general and that can kind of cover everybody if you're in a short-term event and like a short-term type of situation where you have to ask somebody that you never met a couple of questions. So and then listen to those people and you build off of it, and you can build off of that, and that's how you get your interview out. The last thing that I would say, like for example, the Spurs, you're watching the game as you're covering it. So during the game, I will make notes of something that I saw and I'll write out a question, and you know, out of all the questions, I see which ones I want to ask, because when you're in the media room, a lot of people have the same questions that you do. So you want to have several questions lined up so you can ask the appropriate questions and get your particular question out to write your particular story or do your particular video. The third question that I always get is, how do you stay objective and professional even if you are a fan? I think a common misconception that a lot of people have is that I like get free tickets, free autographs, I don't get none of that. I'm just covering the team. And staying objective and professional, even if you're a fan, honestly, I just mentally what I tell myself is, you know, back then, before I covered sports, I was a huge fan of sports, and I still am a huge fan of sports, and that's what got me into the game. But I think I also tell myself that I'm very blessed and grateful to be here. And one of the things that you cannot do, like I said, going back to reading journalism books, you have to be objective, you can't be biased, and you have to remove your fan hat. So there's been times where I've seen, you know, situations where people have fanned out behavior and they're not able to cover that particular team anymore because you're acting like too much of a fan. Like if you ask for an autograph, you're not supposed to do that. So there's rules that you can and can't, you know, do when you're doing sports media. You just kind of like, you got to treat people like human beings and not like, you know, you're there as a fan. So I would say, I always think to myself, a good way for me to stay focused is that I always take a deep breath, and I always tell myself that if I act like a fan, I'm not gonna be here, and I'm not gonna be able to interview these type of people ever again. So when I have big interviews, like I did a one-on-one with Shannon Sharp, Holly Holmes, Dana White, like I've had like Sean Elliott, there's been tons of people that I've been blessed to interview, and I just always tell myself that, you know, I wouldn't be in this position if I'm acting like a fan. So I always remind myself to just keep a level head, and then I can enjoy, you know, that moment afterwards. But I really like to just be focused and treat people like human beings and ask the questions that I gotta ask. There have been some times though where I can hear like me fanning out. Like for example, when I had a sports radio show back in the day, I was able to interview Summer Sanders, and I looked up to her growing up as a sports journalist, and I totally listened back to that interview, and I sound fanned out and crazy. So sometimes you can't control it, but but I've learned as the years have gone by to control my, you know, fan behavior as much as I possibly can. It's easier said than done, and I highly recommend if you know you try it yourself. It's not easy, but you got to do it. The fourth question that I always get is what gears, what apps, what platform do you use for reporting and content creation? So I can give you the answers. For me, I love to use Adobe Premiere Pro. I like to use Adobe Lightroom, CapCut, Canva, and of course all the apps, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. I like to use Google Spreadsheets all the time, and those are the apps. Gear for me is a lighting stand. I'm upgrading my microphone. A microphone. Sometimes, like when we went to the NCAA, I rented out a camera. You can rent a camera, you can purchase a camera. I'm not really more on like the equipment that I have. I'm more on what kind of content am I putting out, and does it look appropriate? So right now I'm filming on my iPhone, and it's the latest version of the iPhone, and the reason why I upgrade my phone is because when my content goes out, I want it to be the most updated looking version. Like sometimes people will put out content and you could be in a locker room, but if you have the worst phone, it doesn't make people feel like they're there. So I like to have the best equipment, the best like phone or whatever the case may be, just to get the content looking right in the way that it should be. So I think it's really important to have equipment that is something like up to date. If you're just going to use your basic phone, like myself, I just use my phone to record. But if you are somebody who wants to be a photographer, that's not my expertise. But all you really need to get your content out there is a phone, just the upgraded version and the apps that I said, and learning the tricks of the trade, and you know, doing your research on those social media apps and how to get the most engagement is how I prepare for content creation and reporting. The final question is, how do you handle deadlines or pressure at live events? This is a good question because live events can be really stressful. There's a lot of last minute changes. There's a lot of little details that you need to get down. Plus, as a woman in sports, we have to look right. I have to constantly like go to the gym, make sure I have a good appearance. And it's not something that's required, but it's something that I like to do because when you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And if I look good and I feel good, I'm gonna perform really well. So I like to, shout out to my girl Des, I like to dress really nice now. I like to make sure my hair is brushed and done, and I brush my teeth. Like just little things like that will help me with that pressure and that deadline for the live event, because I know I look good, I feel good, and I know I'm gonna perform really well. I like to be prepared. Preparation is key. And I think that also helps me with the deadlines and the pressure because I'm already prepared for what's going to occur. And I just tend to thrive under pressure. I'm really good at thriving under pressure. Ever since I was a kid, that was something that I was always good at. So I think that's probably why I like doing this stuff and doing sports journalism, because there's lots of pressure, lots of deadlines, lots of live events, and lots of adjustments. So I feel like just being prepared and putting a look on that makes you feel confident within yourself are important things for handling pressure under live events. And try to take a deep breath when you feel like you have stress too is really important. So just be mindful, taking a deep breath, being prepared, and put your phone on do not disturb. So that is my advice on how to be a sports journalist. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'm gonna have more videos coming out soon. I am gonna just show you guys a day in my life. I'm also gonna do a part 2 of this, how I got into sports journalism. So I hope anybody who's watched this, it's really been helpful for you guys. And if you guys have any questions, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.